Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday, happy Valentine's Day, and welcome to another fantastic Cook Along Live. Tonight, we are going to be making a dessert. It is molten lava red velvet cake with candied rose petals. If you guys are doing anything for Valentine's Day, tonight is the night to step it up a notch and join me while we make this amazing dish. Now, first step, go ahead and get your oven set to about 150 degrees. You want it as low as it can go. A lot of ovens can only go down to 170, so if that's the case, just get it set to 170. This is Fahrenheit. I don't know what that translates into in Celsius. You'll have to take a look at a conversion chart or something to figure that one out. We're going to get started today with the candied rose petals. These guys are going to take a little bit of extra time to do, about 50 minutes to an hour. So we're going to get started with them. Then we're going to go ahead and make our raspberry molten lava center, and then we're going to make our cake, and then a bit of frosting to go on top as well. So pretty decadent, should take us about an hour and a half maybe, and let's get started. First thing, hopefully you got a beautiful rose. I was able to pick one up from my local Whole Foods, and a very nice looking rose. We're gonna go ahead and pick off a couple of the petals, and should be pretty simple. Go ahead and grab a petal and pull it down, and then just separate it from the base, like so. And I'm going to grab 4. That way I can choose which ones I think look the best after they've been candied. While we're candying these things, they're going to be almost dehydrating. So they're going to get a little bit darker and they're going to shrivel up, for lack of a better word, just a bit. So what I want to do is, oops, tore that one. What I want to do is pick pretty much the best 2 for my molten lava cakes. Get you out of the way. A rose by any other name would not be so sweet, I believe is how the quote goes. If your rose petals are a little bit dirty or dusty, go ahead and dust them off. Rinse them under some cool water if you want. I already rinsed mine and let it dry earlier today. I'm just making sure there's nothing obvious on any of the petals, and we're good. How's your guys' Valentine's Day going? Did you guys enjoy the week off last week? That was the first week I had taken off in 45 weeks. Actually, 46 weeks it would have been if I had done a cook-along last week, but because of the Super Bowl, I just took a week off. I'm sorry, the big game. Don't sue me, NFL. So, yeah, it was kind of fun, kind of interesting, very, very strange not having a cook-along going on. And then the other fun thing, this past couple of weeks, I've had a lot of equipment failures around my house, so I'm running a little bit behind and might not seem as organized as I usually am. So please bear with me. What we're going to do is we're going to take the white of 1 egg, and we're going to go ahead and get that separated. And go ahead and get that into a bowl. We don't want the yolk, we just want the white. So a very simple way of doing that is just kind of rolling it back and forth between the 2 halves of an eggshell, or you can always use your fingers if you want, as kind of a sieve, kind of scoop the yolk out. That's all we want from him. We're going to go ahead and give this a very light whisking. And I'm going to go and switch to, you guys can see from up above. We're just going to give this a really light whisking. We don't want to get it super, like we're not trying to form any kind of peaks, anything like that. We just want to get a little bit of aeration going through it. Make it a little bit lighter, and also make it a little bit more homogeneous. The whites tend to be a little bit, I don't know, kind of globby. Giving it a quick whisk helps kind of bring it together. You can use a machine for this if you want. I think it's easier to do it by hand. Not going very long. Just something like that. We got some small bubbles, maybe a little bit more. You basically want it to be very, very tiny bubbles in the white. If we keep going, we'll start making almost like a meringue. We'll start kind of forming some peaks. We don't want to go that far. But we do want to get it to a point where it's light and fluffy like so. No big bubbles, but it is still foamy, which is what we're looking for. I'm gonna go ahead and take this, toss it in the sink for a rinse later. And what we're going to do is just kind of set this aside for now. And we're going to get 1/4 cup. Go find my measuring cup. 1/4 cup of sugar. Just any kind of white granulated sugar. We're going to put that into a spice grinder, or if you don't have a spice grinder, you can just use this the way that it is, or you can use powdered sugar if you have confectioner sugar. The reason we're going to be putting this into a spice grinder is because we're also going to be adding a little bit of salt and kind of making sure they're all ground a little bit finer than normal, as well as mixing them up a bit. Go ahead and pinch of salt, not too much. We'll just give this a couple of pulses. Something like that. You do still want it to be granular, or granulated a little bit. You don't want it to be super, super fine, but you do want it to be a little bit more fine than normal. There we go. Get out of the way. And what we're going to want to do is basically take this. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. I'm going to pour it into a small little mini sieve here. I'm going to put the mini sieve over the top. And this will allow me to just kind of dust on top of these rose petals. Now hopefully your oven is preheating to 150. We're going to go ahead and dip our rose petals into our egg white to get them kind of coated and sticky. And wipe off any excess, or kind of shake off any excess if you can. And I'm just going to lay it right there. And repeat that with all 4 of my rose petals. There we are. Number 3. And last, but certainly not least, number 4. Be gentle. I just tore the bottom off of one of my rose petals, but it still looks okay, so I'm going to continue to use. Just set that off to the side, wipe my hands off real quick. I'll get a good wash a little bit later. Hey Caspero, happy Valentine's Day to you as well. How are things in Arizona? All right, so for our rose petals, I'm going to switch them all so that the curved side is down. So the curved, butt of the rose petal is facing whatever tray you're putting them on. I'm going to be roasting them in a small kind of dehydrator oven thing that I've got. It also does air frying and all that. It's a really cool little device, and it's got these really nice racks that are kind of set up for dehydrating. If you don't have anything like this, which I would expect most people don't, just go ahead and if you have a cookie sheet, like a cookie cooling sheet, cooling rack, will work just as well. Go. I'm just getting any of the excess bubbles off. I just want it to be kind of damp on the surface, but not necessarily with all the bubbles. Cool. Pretty good. Go ahead and that. Perfect. Oh, there's another little error. I am super tiny. I'm going to go ahead and just very lightly dust over my flower petals here. And so we're adding a little bit of sugar to them, and I'm going to flip them over so that the the butt is facing up. And then do the same thing on this side, just a little dusting of sugar. You don't want to go too heavy, but you want to make sure that there's some texture on these rose petals. All right. Now I'm going to keep them with the bowed side up. I'm going to go ahead and put them into my little mini oven for about an hour. Let them dry out and crisp up. There we go. And you'll notice that on my cutting board I've got just a very light dusting of sugar and flour. I don't have any, it's not like caked on the cutting board or anything like that. And yeah, Caspero, everything over here is great. Other than a couple of things, a couple of my technology things decided that they're not going to work for me anymore this week, which was a little bit annoying to say the least, but we'll manage. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my grinder and the sugar kind of out of the way for now, and we're going to start just kind of clean things up and get ready for our raspberry molten lava center. Sugar off into our bin. And we'll get set up for the next step. All right, so we want to juice a bunch of raspberries. We want to get about 1.5 cups of raspberry juice, and we want to get all of the seeds out. I've done this a bunch of different ways, and the most efficient way that I've found to do this is to actually use a mortar and pestle, or if you don't have a mortar and pestle, a potato masher and a normal metal bowl, or any kind of bowl. I guess if you're using glass, that's fine too. Just be careful you don't break it. To actually mash the raspberries so that you can get all the juice out. Now, when you mash them, they're kind of form a pulp, and then we're going to have to pour that pulp into just a mesh strainer and use a spoon to kind of squish the juice through it. I've done it before where I've tried just juicing them through the metal mesh strainer. It doesn't work. It takes forever. So I'm going to grab my mortar and pestle. Again, if you don't have a mortar and pestle, a standard bowl and a potato masher will also work just as well. So I've also got my sieve over here ready to go. And what else do I want? I want my measuring cup. There we go. Cool. So I found that generally speaking, you'll get about half as much juice out of your raspberries as you have raspberries. So I've got like 6 ounces here, and that's not what I actually mean to say. If you have like 6 ounces of raspberries, you'll get about 1/4 cup of juice. Half a cup of juice. Whatever. My brain, it makes sense in my brain, and then I thought it would make sense when I told you guys, but it apparently doesn't. So I'm going to strike that, reverse it, and just go ahead and do what I'm doing. Just going to go ahead and put my raspberries into my mortar, and I'm just going to do 6 ounces at a time, and then I'm just going to go ahead and mash them up. If you got a potato masher, you can put them all into whatever bowl you're working on or working with, and go ahead and mash them. We'll get a couple of rolls around like this to squish them up against the sides of the mortar and pestle as well. And the mortar and pestle is just nice because it's a super heavy object that essentially just crushes everything. It really, really quickly makes work of whatever it is that you're trying to blend. And at the same time doesn't like obviate the seeds. So you're not going to have little bits of seed floating around. You're just going to have raspberry juice. Or strawberry juice, I guess, if you're doing strawberries. I'm going to go ahead and take this and just set it aside for now. Pour this into the sieve. And you can also use this to kind of start mashing things through your metal sieve if you want. I find that a spoon tends to work a little bit better because it's a little bit more flat. This kind of tends to roll all of the seeds and the pulp around. Doesn't do a super great job of pushing things through, but you can always start with this and then move on to a spoon. Totally up to you. And you'll notice that the seed glob will start to kind of get thicker and thicker as the juice separates and goes into the actual measuring cup, and the seeds are kind of left behind. And again, we're going for about 1.5 cups. If you're a little bit shy, don't worry too much about it. Just try and get as much of the juice out as you can from these beautiful raspberries. There we go. Mostly seeds left. We got about just shy of 1/2 cup, so that's what I was trying to say. 6 ounces equals like 1/2 cup. So if you get one of these little 6-ounce trays, probably 8 ounces would equal 1/2 cup. Exactly. We're just going to scoop out the seeds and discard, and then work on our next tray of raspberries. Now you'll notice that I'm kind of like picking them out of this tray and putting them into the mortar and pestle, or the mortar I should say. The reason that I'm doing that is sometimes when you buy these, down at the bottom you'll get a little bit of mold or bacterial growth, I guess is one way to say it. So I just like to make sure that everything that I'm pulling out doesn't have any of that on it. There's no bugs, no leaves, things like that. You can find those in your occasional tray. So I just kind of go through and make sure that all I'm getting is raspberries. Got a couple trying to escape. Go ahead and get these guys nice and mashed up. This is also a time where if you're going and picking up raspberries from a store, getting the ones that look like they might be kind of towards the end of their life is actually a good thing, because they're going to have a little bit more juice. They tend to be a little bit sweeter. You don't necessarily need them to look the best because you're just going to be smashing them up into juice anyway. So finding the ones that are kind of like right at the end of their shelf life usually makes it an easier process as well. Go ahead and just give this all a good mash. This is also a dessert that you can, I know we're doing it on Valentine's Day, but if Valentine's Day wasn't tonight, if it was like, let's say today was Friday and we were doing this, we could actually do this on like a Friday night before a birthday or Valentine's Day or whenever you want to kind of present it, and then you can do all of the cooking. You can make the cakes and do all the cooking on the actual day. So there is some stuff that you can kind of pre-do. Go ahead and just get all the juice out of this as well. This is an involved dessert in that it takes a little bit of time to do and put together and kind of construct it, I guess. But it's not a lot of work, especially if you're using something like a mortar and pestle, where it just kind of takes a lot of the pain out of mashing raspberries to get the juice out. I remember the first time I did this. So last time that I made this was actually 8 years ago. This is a recipe from Chef Graham Elliott from MasterChef, and I think if I remember correctly, they were doing a Valentine's episode, and this is what he made for it. And I might be getting that detail wrong, but I do remember that they were promoting it on MasterChef, and I wanted to make it for Valentine's Day that year for a former girlfriend of mine, and I think it took me all day, like the first time I made it, just because I wasn't, this was back when I was just getting into cooking too, so I wasn't like very confident in the kitchen. Took me a little bit of time to kind of go and figure out what the recipes meant. And so it took me a while to put it together. And one of the mistakes I made was trying to actually juice the raspberries through one of these things. I don't recommend it. Mortar and pestle works a lot better. If you really want to save time, just throw them into a blender and blitz them all. The problem with that is you are going to get some of the seeds, because they're going to get blended up as well. And then it'll give it kind of a grainy texture. There we are. Back to this and just see if I can get a little bit more passed through. Hey, Christina. I have not tried this with other berries, but I believe it would work with anything as long as you have the correct amount of juice. Strawberry would probably work great. Marionberry or blackberry. Raspberries have, you know, the red color already in them, so you don't have to add it as much. Well, you don't have to add any food coloring to the center of it, the molten lava part of it. But if you were doing something that was darker, you just have a different result. All right, I think we got all the juice out of that set. So I'll get rid of the seeds. And hopefully this is the last one. If not, I've got a little bit more raspberries we can use to make up our last little bit of juice. Go ahead and roll these guys here into the mortar. And all look good. Oops. Grab this bad boy. Hey Mom, how's it going? Good to see you here. Yeah, Cindy, you can definitely do that. What was that? The funnel sieve. Yeah, you can use the funnel sieve. I still think the mortar, it gives you that nice hard surface. Even the funnel sieve, like this thing here, when you push on it, I don't know if you guys can see it from up above, but it bends. Like it's super, super flexible. One of the benefits of using a mortar and a pestle is there's no give. So anything that you're kind of, you know, grinding or mashing or whatever, it doesn't have anywhere to go. So it literally just falls apart as the pestle is destroying it. Now, when you're doing persimmons, obviously it's not, I mean, you're going to be doing like one persimmon at a time in this small pestle or small mortar. Probably not super efficient for that, but you can get these, you can get larger mortars for sure. And don't be afraid of making noise when you're working with one of these things. A lot of people try and be super gentle. They're made to be, I don't want to say they're made to be loud. They're made to, you know, crush things. So keep your fingers out of there, because it does, I've done that. That's not pleasant. But you're probably not going to break it unless you're really slamming things down. Go ahead and see what the pestle gives us. All right, we're just over about 1.25 cups. So let's see if we can get to our 1.5 cups here. Just with those 3 little carriers of raspberries. Not much, Mom. Just making some souffle. This isn't really a souffle. Molten lava cake, but pretty close. Looks kind of similar. That's just about 1.5 cups. See if I can get some of that last little bit of juice, pressing it through with a spoon. See if we can get to our 1.5 cups. Now you might be looking at this glob and saying, hey, this looks super wet. There's tons of juice still in here. The problem is a lot of that is actually fiber. So yeah, there is juice in there, but it's not going to come through the sieve. So just go until you're not getting any kind of a good amount of return on your time investment here, and then you're done. All right, I've got a cup and a half. I'm good with that. Go ahead and scoop out these seeds. And then get this out of the way for now. And so we got our cup and a half over here. What we're going to do, and you'll have to excuse me because I am looking at the recipe as we're doing this, because last time I made this was 8 years ago. 8 years ago? 2013? Yeah, 8 years ago. So it's been a while, but it's pretty, like, it's not a hard recipe to do. I just want to make sure I get everything right. All right, cool. So we want a half cup of juice from this. So let me grab a smaller measuring cup. We're just going to get about a half a cup in here. Nice and smooth. We're going to get that into a little pan over here. You switch over to there. Sorry, the overhead cam doesn't capture that anymore, and my side cam decided it didn't want to work again today. We're also going to do about a half a cup of regular water. I'll just rinse the little measuring cup with that. There we go. Now we want 3 tablespoons of sugar. One, 2, 3. Coincidentally, that's the number of licks it takes to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop. All right, get that out of the way. 3 tablespoons of sugar. We want a pinch of salt. Add a little bit more. And we're going to use a Knox Gelatin packet. 1 envelope, which is about 1 ounce of gelatin. And what we're going to be doing with this is essentially kind of creating a little bit of a like jelly round, essentially, to put in the center of the cake batter, so that when it bakes, the cake batter rises, the center will actually start melting because of the heat, the additional warmth, and you'll end up with your molten lava center. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that in the entire packet, and then we will grab a chopstick or 2, and you can use anything to mix this. I like chopsticks because they're wooden, so they're not gonna ruin the non-stick of this particular pan, and they work pretty well. Now I don't have this on any kind of a heat. The heat is off. I really want to get the gelatin and everything kind of mixed in first. Let it sit for a few minutes to kind of bloom, and then we'll turn on the heat and just bring it up to a, not even really a simmer. We just want to warm it so that the gelatin finishes melting. There we go. Hey Mom, this was the rose that I used to make my candied rose petals. So those are actually over in the oven right now, drying out with some sugar on them. And here we go. That looks good. Gonna give that a couple of minutes just to kind of bloom. Get this out of the way. And And while I'm over here, I can't switch to the camera, unfortunately. Try and have these technical issues sorted by next week. But I'm going to rinse off my whisk and get ready for the next set where we make our cake. So looking in there, just making sure that the gelatin is all kind of dispersed throughout the fluid, which is exactly what you want. And I've got this remaining, which we're going to actually be adding to that once we kind of heat it up to melt it. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of rose water. So rose water is actually not that hard to find. Usually like not a Bed Bath & Beyond, Beverages and More is actually where I found this. My grocery store right across the street has larger bottles of rose water in the Middle Eastern section of the store. And essentially all it is water that they boiled, and then as it steams, it goes up into a set of rose petals, and it kind of pulls the flavor of the rose out. So you get like a rose flavored water. Actually pretty cool. It gives this a little bit of a hint of floral. I'm just gonna add a couple more dashes, which makes these kind of a neat Valentine's Day thing, because you get just a little hint of rose. And let's see. Got that. I'm just going to give it a quick little mix, kind of disperse it, and we'll get our heat on. Oops, let's plug this in. Get our heat on low. And we don't want this to boil. We just want to bring it up to kind of until it's steaming. Like just when you start seeing wisps of steam kind of come up off the top, that's when we're going to turn it off. We'll add the rest of this, and then we're actually going to separate it into ice cube trays to make it a little bit easier to pull it out later. And these are actually each 1 ounce for an ice cube, which is perfect for these molten lava cakes, because you can basically get like a little 1 ounce gelatin. And you can do 1 or 2, depending on how much molten center you want in your cake. Absolutely. Family reunion is going to be awesome. That's next week for those of you who are not in the real estate industry. Family reunion is a education convention and kind of gathering of Keller Williams agents. And so next week is that. Gary Keller is going to be talking to a couple of pretty high profile companies, one of them being Zillow, who is slowly doing some really interesting things in the real estate field. I'm not going to get into it too much, but it's not good for agents. I'll put it that way. It doesn't seem to be good for agents. So he's going to be interviewing them to see kind of what their game plan is, or at least what they're saying their game plan is. And I'm sure he'll get into some more details as well. All right, so I'm starting to get a little bit of steam coming off of this. I'm going to wait for just a little bit here. Just kind of keep swirling it. And what the heat actually does is it kind of helps to melt the gelatin and just disperse everything so that it all dissolves. And we want a pretty good dispersion of everything in this so that it gets nice and kind of jiggly. I don't want it to boil, but I do want to get it a little bit warmer. I'm just going to keep moving it so that it doesn't start aggressively going. All right. I think that's good. I'll go ahead and turn off the heat. We'll do this. Switch over. You guys can see that it's just to the point where we're getting some steam coming off of it. All of the gelatin is melted and all of the sugar is dissolved, which is what you want. You want it to be nice and smooth in there. Then we're going to go ahead and add the rest of our raspberry juice. And we already mixed our rose water into there as well, so we'll get that nice floral aroma. Go ahead and give that a nice little swirl. Get it all over your cutting board. Not Valentine's Day if you don't got stuff everywhere. All right. I'll let that cool for just a second. While I'm waiting, I'm gonna come over and grab a nice little scoop. I guess I can use my tablespoon scoop. And I'm basically just going to scoop two tablespoons, or until it's level, really, whatever you want, into each little ice cube tray. And then for the sake of this cook-along, I'm actually going to take these outside. I've got a really nice freezer out there that cools things down pretty quick, so I'm going to toss it into that freezer. And that should gelatinize it. If you guys are doing this at home, feel free to put it in the fridge. It might take a little bit longer to kind of harden up. It's not going to harden up. It's going to basically turn into almost like a Jell-O. But you won't run the risk of coming out with ice cubes. Not that that's ever happened to me before. All right. Now you end up with a lot more raspberry puree than you can use with the amount of the molten cakes that we're going to make. The amount of batter that we're going to get will allow us to essentially put together 3 or 4 molten lava cakes. But as you can see, we're going to have like 12 or so 1 ounce ice cubes or gelatin cubes of raspberry. So the cool thing is you can always melt these back down and essentially just have like a raspberry sauce. So if you wanted to, melt this down, put it over ice cream or another cake that you make, something like that, maybe make a flourless chocolate and use this as kind of the adornment over that. And great way to kind of reuse this, repurpose this, since we end up with so much of it. Good, and there we go. I'll just top some of these guys off. There we are. Set you there. Put that in the little mess. And I'll be right back once I toss this in the freezer, and we'll start working on our cake. Now, I could put it in the freezer here in my kitchen, but unfortunately, got too much stuff in there and can't fit it. So we're going to use my little power freezer out here. Goes. Perfect. All right. Moving on. Go ahead and again, just kind of get everything off of here. We're going to give it a rinse and kind of set up for our next stage of these cakes. Again, usually I have my sync cam set up so I can talk to you while I'm doing these rinsing things, but having some technical issues this week. So please bear with me and listen to the awesome sounds of me cleaning things. I can still chat with you, but just don't get the pleasure of seeing my face. Sorry. You'll just have to deal. Something tells me you'll deal just fine. All right. That on the side, and now we move on to our cake. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to be sifting a bunch of cake flour, 1.5 cups of cake flour. We want 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. I'm going to start with my cocoa powder. Get 1 teaspoon of it into my sieve. And I want 1.5 cups of cake flour. You could probably use bread flour. The difference is cake flour has leavening agents in it, so it kind of helps it rise, I guess. My 1/2 cup. So if you can find cake flour, or if you have cake flour, I would recommend using it. What I'm going to do is put in 1 scoop of cake flour. I think we need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Yes, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to put that in here. And the reason that I'm going to do that, I'll just do it over. The reason that I'm going to do it at this point is because I want this all to kind of sift together. So by putting it all in layers in this sieve, I can do that. When I'm shaking it and everything's kind of going through, it will also be combining it. 1 cup. Now I want just a 1/2 cup more. There we go. 1.5 cups of cake flour. Get this set off to the side. We're going to go ahead and just kind of sift these together. And what's going to end up happening is all the large kind of balls of anything are going to kind of sit in the sieve like this. If it's something like this cocoa powder, you can actually just kind of break it down so that it's nice and fine. If it's stuff like salt, which might be a little bit too big to pass through the sieve, I just usually turn it upside down. But again, this is serving 2 purposes. It catches all of those clumps so that they don't form in the cake. Everything in here is nice and light now. And when we had clumps at the end there, we were able to just kind of pass them through to aerate them and break them up. And also it's mixing them together at the same time. Go ahead and use my whisk and just make sure that everything is nice and incorporated. And that looks good. Set that aside. And what else do we want? Flour, cocoa powder, baking soda, and salt. Perfect. So, now what I'm going to do is grab another bowl. We're going to do 1 egg. Just in the bowl. I think we want 3/4 cup of sugar. Yes. And I guess I'll just use the 1/4 cup. Also, we want canola oil, which is over here. There we go. We want 3/4 cup of sugar going in here. 1/4. 2/4. 3/4 cup of sugar. We want to actually whisk that together with the egg and kind of cream it together. Put that over on the side. Get all of our flour off. There we go. Now I want 3/4 cup of canola oil. If you don't have canola oil, or if you run out, you can substitute peanut oil or any kind of neutral, unflavored oil. You just don't want to put olive oil in here because it's going to give it a really weird flavor. Look at that. I think I might have exactly 3/4 cup of canola oil. Perfect. We want a 1/2 teaspoon of white vinegar. There we go. We want a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And a 1/2 cup of buttermilk. So we'll go ahead and pour out our buttermilk. That's another good one, Dad. You can definitely do a little bit of vodka in there as well and have some raspberry shots. I like that idea. Automation of buying and selling a home. Caspero, yeah, that's a great question. My opinion is I think that it's a person-to-person business. You can automate it, however, you lose out on things like actually talking to somebody who knows what's going on with the construction detail of the house. If you look at a house and you might not notice something that seems a little bit off, automation is not going to be able to catch that. Automation also can't negotiate for you. So if you think that you're an awesome negotiator, by all means. However, realtors are usually, I mean, that's what we do. We're trained to negotiate for clients and figure out what's going to work on both sides and not negotiate aggressively, but not negotiate aggressively without offending anybody is kind of what we're trained and very good at doing if you're working with an agent who knows what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, automation, I'm sure it works in some instances, some circumstances. Hey, I'm buying an investment. I don't really care about the house. I just want to buy something and rent it out, or have somebody else manage it. Automation may work for that. Even then, you're really kind of losing out on the negotiation part. The automation doesn't allow you to do that. Whereas if you're doing this in person or working with a realtor, we go in there and we say, cool, here's what's up. We know what's wrong, what's right, what you want as the client, and we can actually help you get exactly what you want as opposed to just hoping for the best, if that makes sense. Yeah, I know, Mom. Where is Hannah? I missed a couple of things here. Okay, cool. I am caught up. Absolutely, Christina, too. Yes, yes, yes. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So we got all of these set up. We're going to add our wet ingredients to our dry ingredients in 3 stages. So we're going to do a little bit. We're going to mix it up with the whisk. We're going to add a little bit more, whisk it up, and then add the last bit, whisk it up. Then we're going to add our food coloring. We're going to add a lot of food coloring. We want this to be red, like the raspberry centers. So if you can find like a naturally derived food coloring, which is what I'm using. I'm just using 365 food coloring. It's plant-based, and that means that if you add a ton of it, you're not going to be poisoning yourself, or hopefully you're not. I don't know what they put in it. Just says it's plant-based, so I trust them. All right, so we'll go ahead and get our wet in. Give it a nice little mix. It's going to start clumping. That's fine. We're just going to kind of roll it out, or I should say whisk it out into like, almost like a dough. Then we'll add our second set of the wet. There we go. Awesome, Laura. How are your students doing? You're down in Arizona too, if I remember correctly. Caspero is over in that area too. Don't know if you guys live anywhere near each other, but kind of an interesting coincidence. All right, there we go. You can notice that this is definitely kind of smoothing out, and that's what we're looking for. You'll also notice that it's looking a little bit brown, and that's because of the cocoa powder that we added, which is why we need a lot of red food coloring in here to redify it. Go ahead and get the last. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go and grab a spatula. Now, if you don't have a super flexible silicone spatula, I highly recommend it, especially if you do a lot of baking, because you can literally just wipe down the sides, almost like you're squeegeeing the windows on your car, and get all of that, like all of this was kind of stuck to the sides. It'll all come right out. And just make sure you get all of that moisture out of your bowl and into the actual mixing bowl. I'll go ahead and swirl this until it's nice and smooth. This is going to be a thicker cake batter, so expect that, but you shouldn't have any clumps. It should just be a nice, smooth, light brown batter. There we go. The obligatory taste. Now we're just going to start adding. I like to start with about 30 drops. The recipe says 1 ounce. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. The recipe says 1 ounce. These food colorings say that each one of these bottles is 0.3 ounces. So I should actually have 2 more of these to put into this to make it red. I think that's a bit excessive. So I usually just kind of start with about 30, see what color it looks like, and then I'll just add from there. I do like to make it kind of a deep red. It's usually somewhere between the 30 and like 50. But I think 1 ounce is a bit much. Go ahead and add another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And yes, beets or radishes. We actually, so I'm Armenian, and one of the things that we used to make when I was a kid was a thing called turshi, and my mom knows about this. And I think we used beets when we used to do that. And it's basically almost like kimchi. It's like the Armenian version of kimchi. It's like spicy pickled vegetables. And you'd always add a little bit of beets so that they come out brilliant red. It's a memory from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. All right. Do 10 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. We're getting a little bit more red, getting rid of some of that brown. The only reason I'm tilting this is so that I get better purchase with my whisk. There we go. That's a nice, it's a nice red color. Really, really work, especially if you're working with one of these kind of bowls from like a mixer, like a KitchenAid mixer. They usually have a divot on the bottom, so just make sure that you're getting into the groove around the center and pulling up the brown batter, because otherwise you'll have like swirl, which is not ideal, especially when you want something themed like a Valentine's Day thing. My dog heard me set my mixing bowl down and he thought somebody was knocking at the door, so of course he's over here barking. That's it, stop it. There we go. That's a good color there. So there we go. Nice pink. It'll actually darken a little bit in the oven as it bakes, so it might turn a little bit more red. I'll just leave it over there. Ooh, awesome, Caspro. Chocolate cake sounds awesome. Now, if you had, you know, your raspberry sauce, you could always add that to the top. And then if you want to follow everybody's suggestions and add some vodka to it, you get a little bit of a nice vodka cake. All right, cool. So we're done with our cake batter. Get your oven, crank it up to 350. I'm gonna go and grab the gelled centers, and I'll be right back. No, you're staying inside. I'll take the dog out after the cook-along. All right. So we've got our gelatinized raspberries over here. And we're going to grab a couple of ramekins. If you don't have a ramekin, you can actually use a coffee cup or like a coffee mug. I would use a smaller one. Don't get a super big one. It'll change the cooking time if you use something that's bigger or smaller than what I'm using. These are 8-ounce ramekins, and they're pretty much perfect sized for this. And what we're going to do is we're going to put just a small little bit of butter. And this is all butter that I've left out, so it's room temperature. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of a dollop on my finger. And I'm just going to very lightly coat the sides of the ramekin, like so. And you can use Pam if you want, or any kind of cooking spray. I personally think this works a little bit better. And it's just as easy, and you can make sure you coat everything. You don't want a huge layer of butter. You really want a light little kind of coat. There we go. I'll do it with the other one as well. This is probably less than a teaspoon of butter on each one. And it's really just to kind of let the cake rise smoothly. We're not going to be turning these out, so the cakes are going to stay in these ramekins when you're eating them, but the sides will actually stick to the ramekin, the cakes, as they start rising, and it makes it look a little bit wonky. Unless you butter them, or use any kind of kitchen cooking spray. All right, we're good on this. What we're going to do is we're basically going to use a tablespoon, scoop out enough of this batter to just layer on the bottom of our ramekin. We just want a small layer on the bottom. I'm actually just going to kind of use the spoon to press it down and around. So, kind of spread it. You'll notice that I'm going to turn the ramekin. Makes it easier because then you're not trying to like move your wrist in weird directions that it wasn't meant to go. That one more scoop for this other one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another spoon, and I should be able to scoop out my raspberry centers. There we go. Now, when you scoop out the raspberry center and put it in here, grab another spoon. Actually, I could probably use a knife. A knife might work better. So if I come in here and I kind of scoop out these raspberry centers and I put them into the middle, if you look at where the edge is on the ramekin, there's always a lip, and then you can see it down here. You can see kind of the lip running around the inside of the ramekin. The top of this little bit of gelatinized raspberry comes almost to the top of that little divot. That's basically where we want to stop filling from this point on. So here you can actually see that I've got enough room. I'm going to scoop this to the side. I could put 2 in here, so that's what I'm going to do. Do this, scoop it out, and there we go. Perfect. And I'll do the same with this bad boy over here. Get one. Don't worry too much if you get like a little piece that kind of flops out. just scoop it towards the center. And move on. These are all going to melt into the molten lava center that we know and love, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and set this just to the side. Now, I'm going to take another scoop. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scoop, when I dollop this in, I'm going to dollop around the sides first to kind of squish the centers towards the middle, as opposed to scooping it in the middle first or on top and having them like spread out. So I'm trying to kind of keep everything constrained into the middle of the ramekin. I'm going to start on the sides. So. And whoop. This is just thick enough that it's not. There we go. And then once I kind of fill up the sides, I can then put a dollop on the middle to kind of cap it off. What I was starting to say is this is just thick enough that it's doesn't drip off very easily or very quickly from the spoon, but not thick enough that you can like just rotate the spoon and capture it all. All right, there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and spread it out just a bit, kind of on the sides here. Put one more dollop right over the middle. And again, I really don't want this to come up too high, because this will puff up as we're baking it, and I don't want it to spill over in the oven. I basically want it to come just to the top of the little divot on the inside, and then we'll get that nice little kind of rise just over the edges of the ramekin. There we go. About, I don't know, 2/3 of the way full. Get this scooped out. And I'll just level this off a bit. Perfect. So one is done. I'm going to go ahead and just clean off the side there. And we'll move on to our other one. These guys already kind of scooted away from each other, so I'm going to get them a little closer, and then we'll do the same thing on this one. We'll start on the sides. Apply a little bit of pressure to kind of squish them together into the middle, and then we'll put a dollop on top to cover them. There we go. Thanks. Come here. See if that's enough. Now, one other thing about these, like I did get rose water for these. I think it works really well. I think it tastes kind of, it's a very subtle flavor. Now they do make rose water both for eating or using in drinks, as well as like a rose water oil that you can get in the beauty section. Don't use the oil. It will make your molten lava cakes taste like perfume, as opposed to that nice subtle kind of flower floral scent. I don't have experience with that, but I have read some things. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take these and give them a nice little tap, rotate, tap, rotate. It'll just make sure that everything is settled. and hopefully bring any small little bubbles up to the top. I'll do that with this one as well. And again, be firm with your ramekins. They're porcelain, and if you're just knocking them down against a cutting board, a wood cutting board, you shouldn't have any problems. Don't do that against a glass cutting board. You'll probably break the cutting board. All right, and don't do it against, I've got granite countertops. I don't want to break my ramekins, so I'm not going to do it against the countertops. All right, I'll move my Jell-O over to the side. Any drips on your cutting board, feel free to swipe them and enjoy. Let's see, where did my, it's in here, all right. Get that out of the way. I've got a small, grab my oven mitt. So what I'm going to want to do here, put the ramekins on a baking sheet. The reason we're putting them on a baking sheet is just in case they do kind of volcano up the top. We're not getting our oven dirty. It's just going to drip into the baking sheet. We're going to go ahead and put these in here for about 7 minutes. Hey Siri, set a timer for 7 minutes. All right, so Siri's gone. And now we're going to make our cream cheese frosting. I've got enough in here for another couple of things, but I'll get to that later. Dog, that was me. Hey, stop it. No. All right. So last but not least, we got our cream cheese frosting for this. What we want is 8 ounces of unsalted butter. I've actually got, which one is it? This one, I think. Is this 8 or is this 16? Let's see. Hey, stop it or I'm going to put you in the room. Go away. Go away. Stop it. Go. Go. Out. No. No. Out. All right, got our butter. We want another packet of cream cheese, same thing, about 8 ounces. We want 16 ounces of powdered sugar, so this is going to be a very, very sweet frosting. And we want a little bit of vanilla extract. So let me grab just reuse the bowl. Nope, there was egg. Let me clean off the bowl. Hold on. 2 seconds while I give this a nice little rinse. And there we go. 1 clean bowl. Do. I'm sure you will be happy to come and take it off my hands. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get our butter and our cream cheese into the bowl. And again, this can be used for a bunch of different things, and not just this, if you are wondering what to do with the excess. Go ahead and get these incorporated together. Don't know if you guys can still hear my dog being a little grump over in the corner there going ruff. But I don't know why he doesn't like people when they knock on the door. And it wasn't even a knock on the door, it was literally me putting a bowl down on the counter, but it sounded like a knock on the door. So, oh my goodness, the world is ending. And Doggo must protect the house. The funny thing is, he does not do it if I'm not home. If I'm not home, he totally ignores it. But if I'm home, gotta show somebody who's boss. All right, so we're gonna put in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Got a little bit of cocoa powder in there too, which is fine. And a crap ton of powdered sugar. Let's see, how much is in this? 32 ounces. And I've used a bit of it. I don't think I'm gonna do 16 ounces. I'll put in a bit, but we'll see how it tastes. There we go. And I'm just going to kind of gently incorporate this because powdered sugar will powder into the air quite easily. So we're just going to get this mixed through. Let me cap my vanilla before I spill it all over. I can absolutely see that happening. Our rose petals just beeped at me, so I think that they are done. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer?
7-minute timer. 12 seconds to go.
2 minutes left on that. Then we're going to rotate them and cook them for another 10-ish minutes. There we go. This is absolutely why you want the butter and the cream cheese to be at room temperature, because if you're trying to do all of this work on cold butter and cold cream cheese, good luck. All right, I guess it is going to be about 16 ounces. I'll follow the recipe. I'll have a heart attack later. It's all good. Yeah, he's a very, very big 15-pound poodle. So he's not a, he's got Napoleon complex is essentially what it is. He hears something and he's gotta show how big of a dog he is. His bark is much bigger than his size. There we go. Get all that cream cheese off the bottom. And off the sides. There's our nice little dollop of that. Hey Siri, stop the timer. Now what I'm going to do, we're going to, got a couple of smaller ramekins here. I'm going to, right now I'm actually thinking about plating, because we're almost at that point. I'm going to scoop some of this stuff out, microwave it, or put it into my oven, let it kind of liquefy again. So I'm thinking about putting this on top and then maybe drizzling some of this as well for a little bit of contrast. Let me go ahead and put this in the oven. And this. Hey Siri, start a timer for 10 minutes. There we go. All right, put this off to the side. Let's go grab our rose petals and see what they look like. Oh, that's kind of cool. A lot nicer than the last time I did this. You'll notice that they got a lot darker red, or darker purple. Here's the original rose for comparison. So you'll notice that they deepened in color. Oh, sorry, Cindy. That is true. I'm going to be very gentle, kind of trying to pop them off of this. Oh, and they might not release very easily. See if I can tap them from the bottom. Because they're very, very delicate. So let me see if I can get these guys off. Wondering if maybe flipping them halfway would have helped. Be as gentle as I can, but I don't think it's going to work. I think these guys are going to well, at this point, just break them apart, have some nice candied roses sprinkling on top. I think that's the best we're going to be able to do. See if we can save one of these. Probably not. I had the same issue the last time I made them, but I didn't have the nice grate. So I assumed that maybe the grate, or I thought maybe the grate would work a little bit better, but it doesn't seem like it did. Oh well. Can't win every time. I'll have to try it again. Maybe some year when I have somebody to actually do a Valentine for. Oh, that one's all right. I'll keep experimenting and see if I can figure out the secret. That's okay too. There we go. All right. What are we doing? We're waiting on those to finish baking. Go ahead and clean up some of our work surface. While we move into the end game for this Cook Along Live. 5:49, so we're just at about an hour, 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. So right on schedule. Now again, like this does take a little bit of time, but the effort is not all that much for a pretty impressive presentation. When we're done with this and we're actually showing you what this looks like. Oh yeah, Laura, you take the roses, you take an egg white, crack it, and just very lightly beat it. So you get like a very fine foam. You dip the rose petals into the egg and kind of scrape off the excess. You just want it to be a nice kind of glossy surface on the rose petal. You take some granulated sugar and a little bit of salt. I used a spice grinder just to pulse it a couple of times to make it a little bit finer. And then I used a little super fine mesh sieve to sieve it down, or to dust the rose petals like so, and then put them on, or I had them on the tray anyway, flipped them, got both sides into, I have a small little oven / dehydrator that I put them in for about an hour. So those were going in the background while we did everything else. And then once we finished with everything else, those were done. I've got some nice little candied rose petals. Let's see, what I'm gonna do now is just kind of pull these guys off to the side because we're waiting on the cakes to finish rising. I think these are the two that I'm gonna use. I think what I'll do, we'll put a little bit of frosting on top, stick the rose petal in vertically, maybe even kind of diagonally like so. And then we'll drizzle some of that raspberry puree that we're melting back down over the top. Taking a look. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer?
5 minutes.
And you know what? I think I missed an ingredient. I think we're not going to get any rise because I think I left out the baking soda. Uh-oh. Take a look. They're rising a little bit. Probably not enough. Let's go ahead and do our baking soda. Let's see. Original recipe wanted half teaspoon. So we've already put some in. Well, what I should say is we've taken some of the batter out because we used it. Let's go with just a 1/4 teaspoon. Do one more ramekin and we'll see how that one fares compared to the other two. 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And you might notice that we put the vinegar in earlier into the wet, and the baking soda is supposed to also be part of the leavening agent and helps it kind of rise. So that was a dumb mistake, but it happens. Happens to all of us. Give that a nice little mix. And let's see. Get this ramekin over here. Nice little rinse. And here we go. Do. Parchment paper. Parchment paper, would that work for the roses? Or a silk pad? I'm curious. I don't actually know. Last time I just did, because usually what I'll do is I'll put aluminum foil down and then cook whatever I'm cooking on top of the aluminum foil. And I think that's what I did last time. That was, again, 8 years ago, so I don't remember exactly. I'm curious if parchment or a silk pad would work. I have both. I could definitely test that later tonight. The roses are super easy to do, and I still have my egg white over on the side, so maybe I'll give that a shot and see which one works better. All right. There we go. Let's go ahead and put our small amount in the bottom. And what happened was I looked in the oven when I flipped them, or when I rotated the pan, and noticed that they looked a little bit flat compared to the testers that I made. And started kind of thinking, well, why would that be? Is the oven maybe running a little bit less hot than it was? Hey Siri, stop the timer. Or, you know, what could the issue have been? And then I realized I had baking soda sitting on my counter. I don't remember having used it. I believe that. What happened? All right, so there's one. Get our second one in. We'll go ahead and pull those other guys out and we'll take a look and see what they look like. And then while we're doing that, maybe we'll see what the difference is between using baking soda and not using baking soda. All right. And if you're cooking along at home, I apologize because you probably did the same thing and didn't add baking soda. They're still going to taste amazing. They might just not look quite right. However, you probably still have enough batter to do exactly what I'm doing and run a fixed batch. And when I go and actually review this video on YouTube, I'll make sure to put a little disclaimer in the video saying, oh, by the way, make sure you add your baking soda here. So if you're watching this in the future, hopefully you saw that and don't make the same mistake that we did tonight. And this just highlights, hey, you know what? When you're cooking, you're going to make mistakes. Even when you're live and cooking in front of a bunch of people. Stuff happens. You're not going to be perfect every time, and you shouldn't really expect to. Cooking should be fun more than anything else. If you're not having fun cooking, you're not doing it right. Or you don't like food. Or you don't like cooking. One or all of the above. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here to get this kind of set up. There we go. We'll just go around. Clean up the edge. God, these poor towels. They get so dirty. All right, there's that. Our timer went off for the other ones, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them out. I left them in for just a little bit longer to see if that might help with their rise, but I don't think it did. But we'll go ahead and swap it out with this one. We'll let this cook while we look at the other ones. They're not bad. Still a little bit soft here in the center, but actually look pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and close that. Knife under there. Go. And you know what? I've got enough for a fourth, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the fourth as well. Might as well just use up everything I got. Go ahead and clean this other ramekin. And we'll get that on tray. Do. And before you eat these, make sure you let them sit for about 10 minutes because they are going to be pretty warm. Let me get this out of the way. We'll do our little dollop on the bottom. You also may have noticed that I did not butter this one, so we'll also get to see what the difference is between buttered and not buttered. Just want you guys to get the full baking experience tonight. That's what's going on. Come on. Go. And bloop on the sides. And around. And on top. All right. Hey Siri, set a timer for 7 minutes.
Starting now.
And last but not least, we'll grab our raspberry puree, the no vodka version. And very nice. Cool. So what we're gonna do, take a look at this one. It's a little bit tacky in the center, and it didn't quite rise the way I wanted it to, but still looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and switch over here. You guys can see the center looks a little bit, it looks wet, but it's not. Like I'm running my finger across the top. It is soft, but not wet. So we're looking at that. What we might do here, so many utensils. We'll grab a little bit of our cream frosting. Maybe we'll just dollop it in the middle. Something like that. We'll offset just a bit. Grab one of the broken roses. Just do something like so. A little bit of this. And it did not work the way that I wanted it to. Probably should let that cool a little bit so it's not liquid. But, I mean, that is one way to do it. The other way to do it, of course, to dollop across the whole top of this. Kind of spread it out. Kind of hide the cake. I don't really like that one either. But it is an option. Maybe we'll just do like a half. half frosting, half raspberry. You can call this one a moon pie. How's that? Because it kind of looks like a moon. All right, never mind. Let's see. Let's grab this piece here. Kind of stick it in the middle like so. There's two options. That works. All right. Moment of truth. Let's dip into one of these and take a look at the molten. Which one do you guys want me to go into? The moon pie or the one that looks like a doesn't look that great. I'm going to tell you that, but this other one, we'll call it that. We'll call it the other one. And actually, while we're here and while we're playing around with our food, let's go ahead and just do what we said we're not going to do. Set there for now. Scoop the frosting off. Just eat the frosting, it's fine. Our knife. A nice little slide around. Plate on top. Flip. Let's see. Does this work? Kinda, sorta. You can definitely see that there is molten lava in the middle. Looks like the bottom wasn't thick enough, of course, because we put a thin layer down there. It wasn't meant to be flipped. But when you cut into it, you are definitely getting a liquid lava center. And it does taste good. That is what's important when it comes to desserts. A little scoop of ice cream might make this make this even better. Which one? The one on the right or the one on the left? The dolphin jumping into the sauce. This one? Or the other one? This one doesn't look like a dolphin anymore. I mean, candied rose petals are actually pretty good. Very light. Almost tastes like when you have like dehydrated apples. Very similar to that. All right. Well, apart from the little mistake that we made, this was a pretty successful cook-along. And you know what? Part of the journey and part of some of the fun of having special moments with a significant other are when you make the mistakes. See how you can recover from them. If you were making this together with your significant other, hopefully you made the mistake and now you guys are just laughing about it. Because that's all that this should be. It should just be fun. Cooking is an experience. And you should never take it super seriously. I certainly don't. I love cooking. I love making things look fancy, but it's just a look. Like, as long as the food tastes good, that's all cooking is about. And actually I have some friends who are afraid to cook for me or afraid to invite me over. Or when I come over and like have food with them, they say, I hope it's up to your standards. And really, as long as it tastes good, it is absolutely up to my standards. Hey Siri, stop the timer. I have fun, and part of the fun for me is being artistic and doing the fun, like gourmet style things that you can do with food. You guys are just looking at a top down with a small, oh yeah, this looks a lot better. But part of the fun for me is the presentation. Go ahead and do this. And part of the journey is the mistakes you make, and then you kind of figure out, cool, this didn't quite turn out the way that I wanted it to turn out. I had a different vision in my head of how this was going to look. So how can I get closer to that vision the next time I make this? So we'll see. Maybe next year, next Valentine's Day, we'll give this another shot. I have a couple of ideas in my head just to improve it a bit, and we'll see if any of those improvements pan out. Now, if you all want to wait for the extra 10 minutes for those to finish cooking, we'll take a look. I'll actually compare what these guys who did not rise look like versus the other ones who are in there right now, and they're going to look a little bit nicer. They already look like they're starting to puff up, which is what should have happened with these guys. In any case, I'm going to leave this up until those are done. If you guys want to chat, thank you, Caspero, and thank you, Christina, and Mom, and Dad, and everybody who are on the stream. I know there's a couple of other you, Laura, who are not related to me. But by all means, guys, have fun with cooking. If you guys want to keep chatting with me, I'm just going to leave the stream up until those are done, and I'll present them when they're ready. I'm also going to... Maybe cool. I'll let that cool on the counter and see if it gels up just a bit again. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the cook along tonight. I'm thinking about actually moving all of my cooking stuff to a different channel. Actually setting up a cooking specific channel. For those of you who watch on Facebook or Twitch, it's not going to have any difference. You guys won't notice anything. But for those of you on YouTube, I'm thinking about starting a second channel, putting all the cooking stuff there, and putting all my aviation stuff on this channel, because that's what this channel started as. And then that way, if you're interested in following the cooking as well, you can go over there. But then I can kind of keep the different subjects organized a little bit better. What I'll end up doing is transferring the cook-alongs that I've done up to this point over to the other channel and basically just upload one a day for the next 47 days, so like 2 months. As well as producing new ones on Sundays, as I've been doing. And then that'll also allow me on that other channel to put together more, I guess, we'll still be doing the cook-alongs, but I'll also be able to do produced cooking videos and being like, hey, like here's a review on how we did this, and actually put together like a 10-minute version instead of having an hour-and-a-half cook-along. Might work a little bit better to have it on a separate channel. So. Yeah, on Twitch, I'm not 100% sure. I don't on Twitch. I have the channel. Not very many people follow me. I know you do, but there aren't very many people apart from you who are on Twitch who follow me. So on Twitch, kind of seems like it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely put the roses on a silpat. The problem is they take an hour to dehydrate, so they're not going to be done tonight. And actually, I don't know if I have my silpat here. I mean, it's in the house, but I'm not sure if it's in my cabinet or not. I think I have parchment paper, though. Let me go and take a look. Parchment? I do have parchment. I don't have my silpat in here. I'm taking a look. I'm not seeing it in my cabinet. I know that I have two. I have one that's like a general silpat, and I have one that's specific for macarons. Not macaroons, but macarons. So I'll have to find those. Let's try with the parchment. So Laura, if you're still watching, you'll get to see how we did the roses. Go ahead and get the parchment down. Absolutely, Caspero. And that's kind of the thing. Like, this channel started as flying. So a lot of people, well, I should say my YouTube channel, you're on Twitch, so you're not on the YouTube channel, but the YouTube channel started as an aviation channel and flight simulator content and things like that, like tutorials on how to fly the DCS aircraft. I'm getting back into that and starting to produce new content as far as that's concerned. And I think that we're getting mixed messages over there. All right, so if you're doing the roses, you basically just grab your rose. We're going to peel off the petals one at a time. Just try and keep it a whole petal. If you need to rinse them off, go ahead and rinse them off under the sink. Let them air dry, or just knock as much water off as you can. Now I've got some egg white over here. And the egg whites I've just kind of whipped into very small bubbles. And so I'm going to go ahead and dip the rose petal into the egg white. I want to get the bubbles off, but I want to keep the white. Try and get as much of that off as we can. There we go. The sugar, we had a 1/4 cup of sugar. We put that into a spice grinder along with a pinch of salt, ground it a couple times, just a couple of blitzes. And then we just kind of dust over the rose petal, like so. And you don't want to like cake it with sugar, but you do want to get enough that you have a nice dusting. Do one more. Off. To the egg. Little coating of egg. Bubbles off. And we'll do the same thing over here. A little heavy on that side. There we go. I'll move these guys over to the dry side. Like so. Off my fingers. I'm gonna get these into, I've got a dehydrator oven thing that's set at 150, but you can put these into any oven set at like 170. They might just go a little quicker at 170. So let's get these in there, and I'll post on Instagram a little bit later and let you all know whether the parchment works better than just the grate. Hey Siri, how much time is left on the timer?
There are no timers set.
Oh, no timer set. Did I not set that other 10-minute one? Probably not. Let's take a look. All right, well, you can definitely tell which one used butter and which one didn't. And they are rising. So those do look a lot nicer this time around. Me too. Making my own beef jerky is amazing. I love doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and eat the rest of this cake. Well, I got y'all here. Now you absolutely should let these cool for about 10 minutes before you serve them, or before you try turning them out if you want to turn them out. That is a good dessert. And beside making it easier to eat, it also makes it easier to dress if you're using frosting. The frosting on top of this, you can actually see, well, you can see on this angle probably, it's already melting. Because these were like straight out of the oven, maybe like 2 minutes rested, out on the work surface. And so the residual heat just melted the frosting really quickly. You'll get a lot more flexibility out of whatever you're trying to dress it with or frost it with, without it turning into kind of like a soupy mess. So, ooh, wine. Awesome, awesome. And thank you, Christina. About 3 minutes, perfect. I've not made my own wine. My cousin used to make his own beer, and it was pretty tasty. But I have not gone that route yet. I used to work at Lagunitas Brewing Company. I was a software engineer. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I haven't done any kind of brewing myself. One of my good friends up in Idaho, I'm not sure if he's watching tonight or not, but he makes his own cider. That's a good cake. I appreciate that, Caspro. Yeah, you know, I wish I had some answers for you. I think, you know, you might be onto something with me making a different channel for food and drink on Twitch, because I'm curious if they spotlight channels that have consistency. whereas mine was and still is like aviation based primarily, and like gaming based. So I'm wondering if that might be playing against me. It's also, the YouTube thing is kind of an experiment. I just want to see if more people appreciate like a cooking only channel as opposed to kind of an eclectic channel that's got a bunch of different stuff on it. So who knows? Maybe I just need to be different lanes for different topics. I'm fine with that. It's super easy to set up. I just enjoy doing this. So for me, it's not about like monetization or anything. I just have fun cooking. I have fun hanging out with people on live streams, and fun chatting with people. Like especially during the pandemic, this is friend time for me, right? I don't hang out with anybody during COVID because I don't want to expose myself, don't want to expose anybody else, and so this is kind of my hangout time. But I also don't want people who aren't interested in this to be inundated with it. So we'll see. Maybe I'll set up different channels for both on Twitch and Facebook. Yummy. All right. Those both look about done. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out. So check out the difference here between these guys. Let me do this. You can see them from this angle. Look at how high they are out of the ramekin. Like this one here's a good, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch sitting out of the ramekin. This one here is the one that did not get buttered. You can see that it didn't rise out. The sides are actually kind of stuck, and you get a cupcake look. But I know that when I'm cleaning this, it's just going to be like baked to the inside of the ramekin. So actually, this episode turned out pretty cool because we got a lot of testing out of it. And you can see this is what we wanted. Something like this, where we've got a nice cake over here, risen out. The inside is going to be molten lava. And here's what happens if you forget to butter. And then here's what happens if you forget to put in your baking soda because you're an amateur. But it's all in good fun. Anyway, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and call this the end of the stream. And awesome, Casper. Yeah, man, it's always great to have you. Always great to have you in here. It's good to talk with you and catch up and stuff week to week. And thanks for the support, man. It's great hanging out with you. But I'm going to call this done for this week. Next week, I, again, don't really know what we're going to be doing, but it's probably not going to be a dessert. It'll probably be something a little bit more savory. We're kind of coming into, I don't want to say spring, but like that weird period in between the dead of winter and once things start kind of getting a little bit brighter and warmer. So we'll look at something. I'll see if I can figure out something that can be done in an hour and a half that's a tasty, rich, hearty meal, and we'll do that. So anyway, everybody, you'll have plenty of warning before I switch this to a different channel on Twitch or on YouTube. On Facebook, I don't care. It's still going to be on the same streams page. But yeah, subscribe, like, share, let other people know if they're into cooking that you have fun hanging out with me, because that's really all this is. Hanging out with me. I would love it if you guys cook with me. I know some of you guys are in a different time zone. That's not possible. But the point of this was when the pandemic started to hang out, cook some food with people, and get some good conversation in with family, friends, and new people like Caspero, who, you know, I didn't know him until he started joining the channel, but he's quickly becoming a good friend. So, all right, everybody, have a great night, and we will see you next week on another Cook Along Live. Bye, everybody.